SAP Project Challenges. In this video, we will introduce you to some of the key challenges associated with managing SAP projects. We have divided the video into the following topics. What typically makes SAP projects fail? What is the impact when SAP project fails? And what makes SAP project successful? When does a SAP project normally get into trouble? So let's start with the first topic. What typically makes SAP projects fail? So to answer that, let's have a look at the characteristics of an SAP project. So it is normally that an SAP project impacts a number of key business processes across business units and functions. And the result of that is that the large number of employees or the end users are potentially impacted. It is the key business processes, meaning it is some of the most complex business processes that are in scope of the SAP projects normally. And that SAP is not a cheap tool, and that means it's normally a significant investment required in both the product itself, but also the skills that is able to handle and understand and perform the task that is required in order to transform these business processes into SAP. So also the characteristic of an SAP project is that the approach everyone normally take is that the standard SAP process is to be adopted. And this is based on the recommendation from SAP itself and from a lot of projects around the world that the SAP process is considered a best practice. Now, the result of this is that in many companies and organizations, the current business processes do not fit with SAP or do not fit 100%. And therefore, there is a significant change that needs to be implemented to those current processes in the implementing organization. Lastly, SAP is normally positioned as part of the backbone in your system landscape. And what I mean with that is that SAP is normally becoming or put in to replace or to be implemented as a key component which your business is relying on. And that key component for SAP to work and provide the benefit, you will need to feed SAP, and SAP needs to feed other systems with a lot of data, and therefore the integration around SAP is normally very complex, and it's normally very high, the number of integration points. So these characteristics is what we believe describes any SAP project. We haven't come across anyone who doesn't fit into this. Now the scope might be different, but the characteristics applies. So are SAP projects really different from other projects? Well, in besides the characteristics, the answer is no. SAP projects share the same constraints as other projects. And the triple constraint model for project management is that you have a budget, you have a timeline, and you have a certain scope. The answer is also no, that is the same project management methodologies and tools that are required to run an SAP project as it is to run any other project. You need to be able to control those constraints in a controlled manner. So the question here is, why do SAP projects tend to fail more than other projects? Well, I don't know if it fails more than other projects, but for sure there is a strong focus on when SAP project fails. And again, it comes back to the characteristics that it's normally quite large projects. So we try to compile what typically makes SAP project fails, and the source here is from IDC. And in this survey, it's very remarkable that actually high up on the list here is that 54% of projects fail so because of poor project management. So that's, please keep that in mind, as we will address this a little later. But first, let's define what is then considered a project failure to get the terms and the terminology right. So from academia world, you will often hear that the term failed projects, but you rarely hear companies talking about failed projects. So the question is, what is then a failed project? Is it because of the project gets delayed? Is that considered a failure? Is it cost overrun? We exceed the budget in order to accomplish the project. Is that a failure? Is it that we didn't get the return of investment that we were expecting to get from the project itself? The project didn't meet the objective. Is that what we believe defines failure? Is it benefit not realized? Is that equal to project failure? Well, our definition that we want to use as defining project failure are when the project objectives and benefit are not realized, meaning either the project effort required to accomplish the project exceeds the potential benefit that you are going to gain from it or to realize from the project, or the project is simply unable to fill the functional requirements. In basic terms, the solution doesn't work. Now, this is very uncommon, that you get that severe degree of failure on a project. But we also believe that project failure is when project events or results are causing negative impact to the organization implementing the project. That can be compliance, customer satisfaction, etc. So this is our definition when you talk about a failed project. So let's look at what the impact then is when SAP projects typically fail. So you can have direct impact to your company revenue, impact to sales, you're unable to accept orders, a negative reputation as a result of you not being able to accept orders because your ordering system, if that's what you're putting in SAP for, doesn't work, it's not in place, or is not able to perform. It can be impact to realize revenue. Basically, you have the order, but you can't fulfill it because SAP, in this case, mostly around logistics and production, you are not able to actually produce or provide the service that is required to fulfill the orders placed. And impact to long-term revenue, both of these impacts customer satisfaction, and that means that people will go elsewhere if you are unable to perform, depending on what industry and what situation you're in. It can also be impact to company integrity. So lack of compliance, shareholder value, there are very strict requirements about what compliance rules you need to adhere to, especially if it's a public company. And you might need to perform large write-offs. That could be the project cost itself. It can be the entire project you scrap, or it can be production errors or other items that is coming as an effect of the SAP solution doesn't perform as expected. And then you of course have the project itself. Again, it says it's very complex project, it's very significant investment. So you might need or you might have the impact to the project itself, the budget and schedule, and of that can be quite significant as it's a significant investment. So with that scary picture drawn, let's look at what then makes projects successful. Well, 6 out of the top SAP implementation issues are people related. So for a successful SAP project, you need to be able to manage your team, your stakeholders, the expectations from end users in relation to resistant change. So all the soft skills, basically. Project management, as already mentioned, is on a fourth of 54%, which is quite high. And here we are down to the hardcore project management processes. If you don't have those in control, you will not be able to control your project itself. Scope management is the 7th biggest issue. Again, it's all linked to expectations, requirements, the process for controlling the requirements, and the whole process around it. So basically, these three, if you can control and make sure that you successfully execute these three areas, you are actually eliminating the significant part of the items that is failing, that has caused projects to fail over in history. So you will see that IT perspective not integrated like a technical is in the bottom. It's hardly technical issues that is causing problems, projects to fail. So how can we address this? Well, in sapprojecttraining.com, we will give you the project management tool and the training in the tools you need in order to be in control. That takes out the poor project management. You will now be a skilled, successful project manager. Including in our training are also the tools focusing on change management for SAP projects and scope management. So basically going through this learning curriculum, now you will get the tools and the knowledge you need to avoid these pitfalls and become one of the projects on this chart. Now it's still up to you to execute it, and that's where we have the coaching and the mentoring forum. We will very much like to make you one of the best and make you successful in not just having the skills, but also to be able to execute it. So to round things up, then let's have a look at when do SAP projects normally get into trouble. So on the top, we have the project phases: project preparation, business blueprint, realization, final preparation, go live support. Now, the issues that could arise during those phases, we try to list in the second line. So in the beginning, it is resources, skills, it is get commitment and sponsorship. Then later on, it's project related, it's technical related. It's as we start testing, developing, we might get in trouble with not being able to stick with the schedule or the issues arising from these activities. Then it's data conversion, and we then go live and we are facing real users issues. Now the user involvement in blue on the third line here. So in the beginning it's very low, but as we go forward, we need the users to be involved in order to verify, testing, give requirements, and then later on they will need to provide input for data conversion and the cutover. And then, of course, at go live, it is the users who owns the systems, or it's their systems now. This is their primary tool. Now, the impact in case of issues during the phases. So in the beginning, we haven't really started. We haven't really scaled up the team yet. So it's very low. Then it goes to medium during business blueprint. We still haven't started building the design. Once we start building the design and realization, we get into a high impact if something happens. And if we're in the final preparation, we are very high because now the investment is done. You have passed the point of return, and you might be in a situation where SAP is replacing other systems which cannot be extended. So you really want your issues raised, addressed, and resolved before you go past the business blueprint. And again, to stress this in the red box here, normally the project gets into real trouble when they get to the sign off of the business blueprint, during the realization, and when they start the data conversion activities in final preparation. So with that, let's complete the lesson with a summary. So you should now have a good understanding after completing this video of what typically makes SAP project fail, what is the impact when SAP project fails, and what makes SAP project successfully, and again the timing, when does project normally get into trouble. Thank you.